to my heart and gratitude for those who have spoken here today, for all of you, blessed ones, and those who have shared the Logos by giving the recall, or that is, that echo of knowing while they are speaking. This is a very special service rendered in Niscience. That whenever we are listening to someone speak, we are benefiting by that Logos in a very special way, and that it is beginning to set up new forces. I was thinking while I was sitting there how this coming to pilgrimage is so vitally important. Now, I remember the time in 1948 when I was told by the Master that I must come here. And at that time, I know that I was under the scrutiny of the Masters as to whether or not my own tonal self, the self within me, would correlate to the work I was to do ahead. And I came to this place of California and made certain very beautiful contacts, and also had the collision for the first time of seeing the West and feeling it against my etheric body and my own person, because this itself is an initiation, to come to this vast place of the West and to touch the Pacific and to see the spiritual forces, the energetic forces, and the psychic forces, which are extremely overpowerful in this part of the world. And this is why we have so very many spiritual and occult and very psychic explorative societies in California, because the state itself still retains certain remnant psychic energy from Lemuria. It is still a part of that continent long ago, which now rests and lies beneath the ocean. When we are exposed for the first time here, there are forces set free and alive in our life, in which we are moved out of the type concept of our own nature and its valuation. I remember when I left California at that time to return to Florida, which is more or less an astral state, caught into an astral belt in the lower aspect of Atlantis memories and recollections, but especially in the state of Florida on the peninsula or southern tip of that part of the United States. There are tremendous astral forces. These forces attract to that part of the world certain psychic things of an astral nature regarding spiritism or working with the dead. And so it was when I had reached that time in my life when I had fulfilled the service for which I came on the human spirit and human genesis level. I was directed to the Master that I must come to this part of the world. And at that time, I first went to Pennsylvania, and there went into a tremendous initiation of absorption through Jesus and various powers in the first part of his ministry, which he left to the world. These returned to me in understanding, and also the beginning of the books which I have written. On my way back to Florida, I had an experience going across the desert. I had come by plane, and I went back by train, because in those days, trains were a little better than they are now. And going across the desert, as I reached San Jacinto, there was a tremendous earthquake. And I witnessed this mountain shaking. And I knew that that was a beginning of a new polarization force for this part of the continent, and that it was the beginning of a spiritual rise in energy and power, and that from that would attract souls who are hungry and thirsty for the real. But have you any realization of how the inner planes work to inspire us and to guide us and to give us sense of direction, to find each other, to build a body for God, that we might be channels for Him? This is a very intricate and delicate work to form a body through which God can channel his powers and reproduce your spiritual powers, which you have used in former life, because God does not waste anything. He does not waste one single spiritual gift you have or contain. That gift is to be used in a particular life in a unique and certain way through which it not only serves your own self-discovery and self-advancement, but also through which it serves the world itself, because man is not born alone and he cannot live alone. And he is constantly in a state of learning and discovering. And the greatest discovering is, of course, first to know the self and what the self truly is. Now, we have previously, to 1946, the United States of America entered into very metaphysical, ego-inclined metaphysics. And this was tightly bound into the egotistical shells of the type of person in the Western world. And when they were exposed to metaphysical powers, they were centered out of, what will it give me? How can I be successful personally through these laws? How can I use myself as a center to attract others? How can I magnify myself as a personality? Everywhere we had these procedures given to us in this period of time. But in 1946, the great masters centered their telepathic light in Mount Whitney in the state of California. And there, as a great dynamic center, from that time on, the souls who had previously been involved in metaphysics began to move towards things spiritual, and especially towards things ethical in spiritual life. So we are here in Niscience to have been the recipients and the channels to receive a system which came from the spiritual worlds, which enables those who are seeking to be upon the path to become self-realized persons, and therefore open their soul knowledge and their gifts and use them with ethic. The whole study of Niscience is directed in this manner. There are many persons walking in the earth with knowledge of certain aspects of dreams, but they do not understand the visions they have. There are many persons who have visions after meditation, but they are no longer being self-oriented or self-motivated. They are moving now towards the thought, how can I serve in the world? How can I serve others? This thought is uppermost now in the mind of those who are seeking evolvement. And so they have come under these spiritual disciples who are seeking self-discovery through ethic. They have come under tremendous searchlights in the spiritual worlds. And these searchlights are now beginning to show up the flaws which are accelerated in them to show them the weakness of the vessels or the vehicles they are to have. Because we who are on the spiritual path now will be asked to do things that no other spiritual disciples have ever been asked to do. We are opening processes of the mind, of the soul, which have never before ripened in one civilization of this size. And it is in this time that we are holding the knowledge so close to the higher unconscious, and we are holding the knowledge also to that which is moving through us, but in the common collective unconscious. We are moving towards these goals because we must prepare for the time now in which science is to give us a life which is so highly energized, so highly computed, and so highly organized in cosmic law. And we are to move beyond the relativity of Einstein into knowledge of great laws. It is very necessary now that we are taught with acceleration from the inner planes through every process given to us, that we might produce and bring forth powers, unique gifts, desires to serve others, and knowing that uttermost and all above everything else is that our own self as persons, we place the ego in the background of the service and bring the service forward as first. The ego and its claim for name and fame is no longer present in true spiritual persons. True spiritual persons are serving God with a one word in their mind of selflessness. And this is the only way one can produce and bring forth the true self, which is seeking to manifest in you. I have been recently practicing a little exercise called the presence of God. And the Eastern teachings are so valuable to us in that they give us certain knowledge which we have failed to have through the Christian inheritance. The Eastern teachings teach us to build a void, not a vacuum, but what is called emptiness or sunyata. And that is to so quiet all of the vibrations of the little self until suddenly that is moved into the background, and that which is a true self comes in and makes its presence known to us, which is the real self. And from this comes the pure joy of experiencing the true self and being at one within it and knowing it as a reality with its wisdom consciousness, with its wisdom joy and its wisdom bliss. Then we also have the next practice of the presence is that those who watch over us in the planes, they may be angels, they may be the great masters or the bodhisattvas, they may be any of these who are close to our divine archetypal chord, and on producing this emptiness in meditation and preparing for deeper meditation and union with the presence of God, these great beings, once we have made union with the higher self, with the true self, then the presences of the divine companions move also into our consciousness. There are times, if you have ever studied yoga, that you become in your etheric body all of the movement. In other words, it is not difficult for you at all to reproduce the movement of yoga once you have established it in the etheric body. And this is also true with practicing the presence, that once you are practicing the presence and permit the vacuum, or not the vacuum, excuse me, the void to be built, and then bring forth the divine companion beyond the higher self, you will feel and know you are one and become that one. And thus you will think in the mind waves of that one. And thus all of the things concerning you in your meditative life, in your spiritual research, will come forward and live in this presence of the divine. As you learn more and more meditative experience, you learn to extend meditation and learn to extend the powers of research while meditating, and learn to bring back the devata sentiment which exists in every dream you dream and in every meditative visualized experience. In this way, this sediment remains in the physical brain and operates with the functions of the physical life. And one produces the spiritual nature into the physical life, and his life becomes organized, peaceful, beautiful, and joyful. And this is done through the practice of the presence. This is how one discovers what his self is. That his little self in self-discovery tells him that the lesser self is but an automated process of karmic patterns and habits we have built upon which we depend and think our whole existence lies within them. And that when we finally discover the true self, we realize that the great energized processes of the soul and the spirit are beyond this automated habit pattern of the little ego, lesser self. And that the greater self, the more is taken into your consciousness, the more you give life to this, because this is what spiritual life is, giving life. giving life where there is no life, creation, where creation is craving to come forth. This is spiritual life. So when we go into a pilgrimage of this sort, we are tested. How sincere are you? Are you relying upon your little self and its fantasy nature? Are you astralized into astralosity, mind, and thinking? Are all these little habits and patterns so vitally necessary to you in your existence? Are they standing between you and the true self? But you can, if you so will, with a spiritual willing, dissolve the little self into energies to be used of God in whatever realm He desires. And you can produce and bring forth the greater self to establish itself in you, what you call the you. Always in the beginning, when I was teaching meditation 40 years ago, my theme was meditation before people in the United States ever thought of meditation. Their great power was demonstration and prayer, and meditation was not spoken of. Now it is meditation, and we must learn how to use the after energies of meditation. We must learn to use the afterflow of thought after meditation and keep a post-meditation diary. In that way, to let the golden thoughts of the presence within us and of our true self flow into the diary, and each month go back at the most close one of your experience and read back to the first of the month to gain contact with your higher self. In doing this, this is part of the discovery through Niscience, through the dream diaries, to go back and read back your dream diary, to go back each day and the counter-clock hours of the day and to see how you did act and did not act, to also to bring your post-meditation diary and read them backwards. From the last page to the forward, you will see standing out before you the story of that little self. And you will see how the greater self is desiring to come forth and speak to you. And suddenly, after you have had about 9 months' experience of post-meditation diary, of discovering of true self-realization, which is the door to the soul, and then comes the union with past lives when you have opened soul realization, and then with soul realization comes God realization, in which you are one with God, and all things in you are God. All things and all persons, God, nothing else. And you are motivated beyond time, beyond space. You are anchored where you can serve. You pull up anchor when the service has finished. You are polarized to the place where you are needed, where what you are is needed. You no longer resist change. You no longer resist things you think you can do nothing about. You are living in that law of the true self, and that true self knows your placement according to the quality, according to that which is in you, God wants to use. If you go out of this world by death, and you do not have the self-realization of how you have wasted your life, you have wasted your life. If you have not spiritually realized your spiritual gifts and why you came into this earth, you have a wasted life. You have to work to realize your unique strengths you brought with you, the positive assets, the positive aspects of your nature. God is wanting to use them in His creation. We cannot slow down God's creation, but we can, by our resistance to God's creation, bring suffering and sorrow and pain. because you can no more resist God and his great power than you can stand in a voltage and expect it not to electrocute you. So the disciple and the initiate, he is said to be divided in man and woman. But we are beginning to realize now that man and woman is both yin and yang in his own nature. We begin to realize we must polarize within. And we are seeing the male initiate now has pressure put on him as never before in this life. And he is needing the spiritual instruction. So long he has been timid about going into philosophy, about going into advanced teachings, but now he is coming forth because God is looking for his avatars. He's looking for his teachers. And he's looking for them to be with those who have a balance of yin and yang in proportion to that which is needed by great cosmos laws, which must use you. As the negative laws use you when you are negative, the positive laws of God's creation use you when you are in self-realization, soul realization, and God realization. Wherever you are placed, if you are teaching or healing, you are healing according to what chakra within you is open and is perfected. If you meet a teacher, he is teaching you according to what chakra in him is the most powerful. And he is reaching out there to get union, make union with that chakra in you like himself. He is not trying to make you physically in his likeness, but he is trying to bring you into the harmony and into the accord of the great wisdom instruction, and to give you knowledge of the great spiritual laws. Niscience approaches you from many, many directions, from cosmology, from the cosmos, from God, absolute God. It approaches you from our Father which art in heaven, which is the story of Genesis and the hierarchy, through that which is of the great zodiacal prototypes. We are approaching you from the direction of the hierarchy. And Niscience is approaching you from that which is the true self and the transcendental. Niscience is approaching you also through actual knowledge, through investigation and research of what God's law is in this earth, but also what the creation of his earth, what it is and what its intent is for man. It is not just a debris moving and turning by some accidental position in the orbit of galaxy. It is a deliberate crucible of creation for intelligence and mind and consciousness. And he who moves in the inner note of that consciousness centered in cosmos is an adept under God and is used of God to raise the human race, which is presently developing, because we are developing new civilizations. We are to have new portions of continents. We are to have new aspects of religion. And we are to have science as we have never could visualize or dream. All of this is now coming in our self-discovery aspect of man's nature. You are surrounded in atoms which are exquisitely formed like diamonds. You are in this atmosphere of beautiful play upon play of energy forces. In every portion of your body, you are in a state of constant creation. When you pull the lever to bring this into discord, the result is tragedy. If you have found a spiritual body through which to work, and through which you are spiritually realizing each day more and more the teachings as given in Niscience, you are graced under God. And to realize all the research processes in Niscience is that which gives you your own self-discovery. But listen to me now. Do not despise your little self. It has been automated for millions and billions of years. It is valuable. It is a house that is mechanized, just like your house or your mobile house or your trailer, and it is mechanized to give you a certain thing. But it is a shell of animated energy with an intelligence of its own. The physical body has its brain. It is in the solar plexus. The great primitive brain of the physical body is in the solar plexus. This is where your health is. This is where the life force is in its great station. So we must realize all this animation is intelligent, and what intelligence is directing it? It is not your intelligence. It is a cosmos power which has set it into generation in ages past. And it is automatically your servant. It is not your master. All you have to do is to order it what to do. And you learn through the Niscience practices and research how to do it, through the house suggestibles. In other words, your body will do exactly what you tell it to do if you tell it in the right way. But it will do nothing you want it to do if you start thinking that you are a certain kind of master over that body. But the brain within the solar plexus must be made activated so that it can direct the health functions of the body, the operating functions of the body. We are wondrously made. And the odd thing is, all teachers tell us to forget the body. But they're not talking about ignoring it, not keeping it clean or healthy or giving it right food. They are talking about do not be obsessed with it. And you're obsessed with it when you're always thinking you're going to give it everything that is not good for it. The wrong sort of foods, the wrong sort of emotions, the wrong sort of thinking, the wrong sort of companions. These are not good for the body, and the brain of the body knows this, and the result is the whole electrical system of the body goes out. And wherever it goes out, there is where the law is working. So, beloved ones, to discover yourself through Niscience is to not put down your lesser self as being something offensive, but to be grateful for this automated house you live in. Your soul has chartered it for you, and it has overlooked it before you took it. Your soul was your agent. It went forth to see what sort of body was needed for this life. And then it said, come spirit, live in this house now, it's ready. And so if we do not realize that spirit is the head of this house, we are persons broken into parts. We are not whole persons, and we cannot be whole for God. So here we are with the task of self-realization, and all of it is based upon one great dynamics, and that is love. Wherever there is love, the body runs easier. The emotions are less intrusive, and the mind is more glorious in its creation. Wherever there is love, all human associations are bred with the leaven of God. So, beloved ones, today we are here. We could say many, many wonderful things about being together and its reverent association. It is simply so ecstatically remarkable. It is difficult to put it, as I said, into words. But our heart has a beat that will never end. It is eternal. And when we pass out of this world, that beat of the heart is going into the great Atma, or higher self. And it's going to beat until the time is ready, and we are fitted for another house, and the soul goes out as an agent to say, this place or that environment, this is ready now, spirit come. So, beloved ones, we are here to dedicate, to extend our knowledge, our love, and to be grateful for friends who share the light and walk with us in the light. Let me thank those who have helped us in all of the practical household tasks to make this a beautiful, beautiful time. And let me also thank Eltacy for her lovely small bouquets of flowers. And also Fiona Wills, who has so graciously given us her creative talent of beauty to make the chair beautiful and to bring the flowers into their right stations. And for our beloved Linda Purdy, who has sung for us today. How could we have been so good to attract someone with such a wonderful angelic voice? We have certainly got something going. And here is also our blessed William, who has not, he is a very, not shy, but he is not a man that pushes himself. He is a man who is there, and he has creation that is so beautiful in music. And one of these days, he's going to let himself out on that piano, regardless of its keys. Beloved ones, I love you, everyone. This is a thing, Jonathan, myself, looking across our little dining table in Glendale. Sometimes it's not even big enough to put our knees under. We say to ourselves, how did God so grace us that we could have and bear the responsibility of nourishing every person singly, to help them in their spiritual life, to make it possible for them to come into their own realization. It is a most priceless gift to be exposed to the souls of others and to give them the relationship, or let us say, to hold that sacred necklace which enables them to open their own necklace for God. God bless you. You are loved.